believe it. I cannot believe it. This is incredible. I mean, I had, you know, I had hopes for you, I suppose. They weren't necessarily high, but I was never expecting this. I gotta give it to you, Sarah. I'm pretty impressed. I've never seen anyone do that before. Ever. Time travel. I mean, I get it's a part of the game, like back at that old original game, but, with what we've programmed into here, I mean, to go all the way back to 2010 like that is, huh. I am still trying to wrap my head around. I'm sure you are too, and I'm sure you're probably more lost than anyone, but also us keeping score back home, like, the fact that the Ben character had deviated so much from his original programming. I'm sorry, I'm going to geek out here a little bit. Like, this is incredible. I couldn't do that myself. I'm glad you're here. Okay, all right, I'm sorry. So I know I'm probably speaking a mile a minute, and I'm going to try and give you a little bit of context here. Um, in layman's terms, this was kind of one of the original simulations that we had constructed way back when. A kind of a playground, if you would, for our first real rudimentary foray into artificial intelligence. Granted, that was so long ago that it looks absolutely archaic compared to what we can do now. But it's been a blast going down memory lane. It's like almost like an ant colony that you set and you forgot about it for decades, and then to revisit it to find it so completely messed up and destroyed. It's wild. Like with its program and directive to corrupt as much as it could, and when no other external force was involved, it just turned inward on itself and destroyed the own world that it inhabited. I mean, you saw it for yourself. Like, normally you load in, there's that intro with a bunch of boring exposition, but there was none of that. All that remained of that entire world was just two holdout areas. One of infinite corruption, and the other of this weird, almost sanctuary, where the last few AIs that existed in this game had kind of banded together as a sort of safe zone. I am sorry, I gotta go back over this again and relook at this, but this is incredible. I mean, it's incredible how just self-aware that Ben character was. He evolved, like, completely from his original directive. To give you a little bit of context, like, the name Ben, we kind of coined this entire system as a little bit of a tribute because he was the first person that we managed to digitize completely into this system, into this behavioral event network. But his consciousness was always supposed to be just incredibly limited, meant to follow the same kind of parameters that any other normal NPC in that program would follow. I mean, I wonder if there was some kind of event or some kind of trigger that made him suddenly deviate from his parameters into some kind of being almost with rudimentary self-awareness. Or, maybe we just didn't program it right. I mean, this was what, decades ago, right? It was a new science back then. I mean, the implications of this are incredible. It means that there are actors in the worlds we make that are capable of realizing that they are in some sort of simulation. I mean, this is big. This is huge. And to think back, one of the first experiments we did into this had an anomaly that did that. I'm just so interested that something had the wherewithal to have the capacity to further break the logic of the game to send you back in time, far beyond the normal parameters of what that song would do. I mean, you've actually gone back into a world before this all went to hell. I mean, look at it. Like, the world, except for you being there, it seems completely back to normal. Except, now we both know what's going to happen eventually. Given enough time, the father's going to corrupt everything again. But it's so wild. Like, I mean, that was sentience that we just saw, right? But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Like, thankfully, it's only just a game, right? These are just programs talking to each other. They can't actually think or feel like we can. Uh, so, it's an interesting experiment, and I for sure will delve into this more, but your role in this is finished. So it's not really worth getting more into at all. Um, I have a ton of other stuff I can show you if you'd like. Our technology, believe me, this is a game from the early 2000s. I have stuff that it's going to blow your mind when you find out about it. We're still working out some kinks and a few things, but I'd love to show you some more stuff. And why don't you stick around for a little bit? You know, I'll show you what else we've got. But don't worry about touching this and going back to this for right now. It's not really important because even though it's traveled back in time in the world there, it's very much isolated to that world. I mean, clearly, we're still having this conversation. You're still stuck here, and nothing else has changed in the real world. But man, I've got to look into that. Why don't you hang tight for a little bit? Don't mess with that anymore. I'm going to come by and pick up this cartridge soon. Okay?